Good morning, guys. In the last class, we discussed about actuators concept in the Spring Boot and profiles concept in the Spring Boot. Can anyone tell me what is the actuator and why we need to go for actuators in the Spring Boot?
Actuator is
Yeah,
used to
go
monitor
ahead.
and manage the Spring Boot application.
Actuators are used to monitor and manage our Spring Boot application. So actuator starter we need to add in the pom.xml in order to monitor that. Then we discussed about profiles concept. What is the purpose of the profiles in the Spring Boot, guys? What is the purpose of profiles in the Spring Boot?
There are multiple environments in
In the real time
project app.
for our
Yes.
application, multiple environments will be available. What is the meaning of environment? Why we need to go for environment?
A platform which is used
Environment means a platform which is used to
application.
Yes, platform is nothing but the environment which is used to run our application. So in the real time, for every project, multiple environments will be available. So what are the environments we can see in the real time? In the real time, we can see dev environment will be available, SIT environment will be available, UAT environment, and production environment will be available. Dev environment, SIT environment, UAT environment, and prod environment will be available. So every environment will have its own properties. When the application is running in the dev environment, it should communicate with the dev database. When application running in the SIT, UAT, prod, it has to communicate with the dedicated environments only. So changing these environment properties every time in the properties file is very difficult. So to overcome that problem, what we do, we will create multiple profiles in the application. So the profiles are used to maintain environment specific properties. Dev properties file, SIT properties file, UAT properties file, production properties file will be available. So which profile you want to load, that you can configure in the main properties file. So this is called activating the profile in the Spring Boot. To activate the profile in the Spring Boot, we are using one file, that is the spring.profiles.active is equal to profile name. So the name can be anything, guys. It can be dev, it can be SIT, it can be UAT, it can be anything, any name you can give. That name, if you configure here, then that profile will be activated. Then that profile will be activated and Spring Boot will load that profile data and it can perform the operations on that. So by using this profiles concept, we can simplify our application deployment in the multiple environments now. Okay, so with this we understood what is the Spring Boot and how to work with this Spring Boot and what are the annotations that we used in the Spring Boot. And last Saturday we have taken some mock interview also for the people on the topics that we completed as of now in the Spring Boot. So the two new concepts we completed now. So one is Spring Boot actuators in the Spring Boot, and we completed profiles concept also in the Spring Boot. So I hope you got the clarity. What is the actuator and what is profile? So we understood Spring Boot. As of now, we discussed about Spring core concepts, guys. So as of now, we discussed about Spring core concepts. So in the Spring core concepts, the fundamentals of the Spring Boot, Spring framework we understood. Like mainly here, we discussed about what is IOC container and what is dependency injection, okay, and what is auto wiring, and what is bean life cycle. These concepts we understood as part of Spring core concepts. IOC container, dependency injection, auto wiring, bean life cycle, these core concepts we discussed. Then after this, we discussed about Spring Boot. So we understood boot introduction, what is the Spring Boot, and what are the differences between Spring and Spring Boot, Spring versus Spring Boot, and we discussed about POM starters. In the Spring Boot, POM starters are going to play very important role. And we discussed about auto configuration in the Spring Boot. What is auto configuration? And we discussed about what is component scanning in the Spring Boot. And we discussed about start class in the Spring Boot. Okay, Spring versus Spring Boot. And we discussed about POM starters. And we discussed about auto configuration. We discussed about component scanning. And we discussed about start class, run method internals. We discussed about banner, and we discussed about runner in the Spring Boot. Okay, so what is Spring Boot? Why we need to learn this Spring Boot? And what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? How to work with POM starters? What is a POM starter? Like web starter available, JPA starter available, mail starter is available, time leaf starter is available, actuator starter is available. Like this, there are several POM starters available in the Spring Boot. Based on those POM starters only, Boot is providing auto configuration for our application. And the next one, when we run the Boot application, it will perform component scanning and it will identify Spring beans available. Okay, bean lifecycle, auto wiring, dependency injection, Spring bean we understood, auto wiring we understood, bean lifecycle we understood, and we discussed about Spring Boot introduction, Spring versus Spring Boot, POM starters we understood, auto configuration we understood, component scanning, start class, run method internals, banner, and the runners concept also we discussed. And next one, after these things are completed, start class and @Spring Boot application annotation, @Spring Boot application annotation, run method internals, banner, runners, we understood. And the next one, we discussed about Spring Data JPA. We discussed about data JPA. So we discussed what is data JPA, what is entity, and what is repository, entity class, how to create entity class, and how to work with repository interface. And we discussed about CRUD repository methods, and we discussed about find by methods, and we discussed about custom queries, how to work with custom queries, SQL versus HQL, how to work with SQL and HQL, and we discussed about JPA repository. What is the purpose of JPA repository? What is pagination plus sorting, and we discussed about query by example concept also. What is QBE? Query by example concept. Okay, QBE concept also we understood. What is data JPA? Why we need to go for this data JPA? Data JPA is used to develop persistence layer in our application. So earlier JDBC available. When you go for JDBC, lot of boilerplate code we have to write. Instead of writing that boilerplate code, we can simply go with the data JPA to perform database operations in our application. JPA will provide the common logics for you. You just focus on your business logic. Okay, when you are going for this data JPA, sorry, excuse me. When we are going for this data JPA to develop our persistence layer, then we need to create the entity class. So what is the meaning of entity class? Any Java class which is mapped to the database table, that is called as entity class. So we used several annotations also to represent our class as a entity class. And we discussed about repository interface. You no need to load the driver, you no need to get the connection and all that stuff. JPA repository will take care of it. So JPA provided two repositories for us, CRUD repository available and JPA repository available. So we have seen how to work with the CRUD repository. There are 12 methods available, predefined methods available. Save method, save all method, find by ID, find all by ID, find all, delete method, count method, exist by ID. Like that, there are several 12 predefined methods available in the CRUD repository. Along with those predefined methods, we have used some find by methods also. So what is the meaning of the find by methods here? What is the purpose of find by methods?
It's like select query. We are with the entity attribute only. We are writing this find by that attribute name. We are getting the result.
Finding the records by using fields.
Yes. So here predefined methods are available. Predefined methods are available. So if you want to perform some operations, I want to retrieve the records based on the employee salary, employee gender, employee country. For that, predefined methods are not available. So if you have such kind of requirement to perform the operations, if you have such requirement to perform the operations, then you can go to the find by methods. So when you go for the find by methods, based on your method name, JPA is going to prepare a query and will execute the query. You no need to write the query also. JPA will prepare the query based on your method name here. Okay, it's very important to understand how to work with find by methods now. It's very important to understand how to work with find by methods now. Next one, custom queries concept is available. Custom queries concept is available. What is the purpose of these custom queries, guys? What is the purpose of these custom queries now? What is the purpose of going with the custom queries? Come on. What is the purpose of going with the custom queries? Any idea?
Instead of getting the
When you
data,
go for custom queries,
With the
when you go
query
for
and
If
custom
the
queries,
method
we can
is
write
not
our
in
own
the
query and
repository or find by ID, then we go for custom queries.
yes. So if you want to execute your own query, I don't want to go with the predefined methods. I don't want to go with the find by methods. Then I want to execute my own queries. Then we can go for custom queries. The custom queries we can write in two ways, guys. The custom queries we can write in two ways. So what are the two ways to write the custom queries here? What are the two ways to write the custom queries here? One is by
SQL and
using
SPQL.
HQL queries. Another one is by using SQL queries. What is the difference between HQL queries and SQL queries? What is the difference between HQL queries and SQL queries? Come on. What is the difference between HQL queries and
database
SQL
independent queries
queries?
or HQL queries.
SQL queries are database independent queries. HQL queries are database independent queries.
HQL queries converted into again SQL queries using a dialect.
Yes, sir. So here HQL queries are database independent queries. So they can connect with any type of database. So maintenance will be very easy when you go for HQL queries, but it will take some time to execute them. It will take some time to execute them. Whereas when you go for SQL queries, they are database dependent. Directly they will execute. Directly those queries are going to execute. But if you want to change from one database to another database in the future, then it is going to take a lot of time. You need to change so many queries and you need to test whether those queries are working as expected or not. You need to test whether those queries are working as expected or not when you go for SQL. Then we discussed about JPA repository concept, JPA repository, CRUD repository available, JPA repository available. So when you go for JPA repository, some additional functionalities we are getting. What are those additional functionalities? Pagination is supported here, sorting is supported, query by example is also supported. Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of this query by example concept? Guys, come on. What is the purpose of query by example concept?
To generate dynamic queries.
So you need to prepare the query dynamically based on the filter conditions. I want to prepare the query dynamically. So user may select the records based on some conditions. Based on that, I want to filter the records. So for that, we are going to use query by example concept. And we discussed about the timestamping concept. What is the meaning of timestamping here? What is the meaning of timestamping in the data JPA, guys? What is the meaning of timestamping in the data JPA?
Represents the time the record is created.
Yes, so timestamping is basically used to insert, create a date and updated date. Create a date and updated date will be available when you go for timestamping concept. That means you no need to set the created date and update date column values when we are working with the entities. So at the rate creation timestamp, at the rate update timestamp concept we can use when we are working with the data JPA. So in our entity classes, when we are writing the entity classes by using data JPA concept, so if you see in our entity, created date and updated date columns will be available. For that we are going to use at the rate creation timestamp and at the rate updated timestamp. What is the purpose of these annotations in our entity class? What is the purpose of these annotations in the entity class? Come on. What is the
Whenever
purpose of
It
these
will
annotations in
add
the
the
entity class?
creation timestamp.
These annotations are used to auto-populate the system date when we create the record or update the record.
Yes. So when that record got inserted, when that record got updated, we can understand by using this timestamping concept here. And the next one, we have seen generators. Okay, there is a concept called generator concept is available. So what is the purpose of generator here? What is the purpose of generator in the Spring Data JPA concept?
It will auto increment the value.
Yes, so generator is basically used to auto increment that value. Whatever the primary key is available, that primary key value will be auto incremented when you go for generator concept. So for every table, primary key is required. So end users are not going to enter the data for the primary key. End users are not going to enter the data for the primary key. We need to generate the value for the primary key by using our application. We need to generate the value for the primary key in our application. So for that, we are going to use generator. As we are using MySQL database, which generator we are using, guys? For MySQL database, we are using identity generator. So what is going to happen with the identity generator? What will happen with the identity generator?
It will increment the ID.
Yes, but identity generator internally will use a concept called auto increment. It is using a concept called auto increment concept here. When we are going for identity generator, it will use auto increment concept. It will use auto increment concept here. Are you guys clear with my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So it is going to use a concept called auto increment concept. Okay, good. So these are the concepts we have learned in the data JPA as of now. And the next one, coming to web MVC. Coming to web MVC concepts, right? Spring web MVC concepts are available. So what is web MVC module? Okay, what is web MVC? We understood what is web MVC module, why we need to do this one, and we discussed about web MVC architecture. So here we learnt about dispatcher servlet. What is the purpose of that dispatcher servlet? What is the purpose of a handler mapper? What is a controller? What is model and view? What is controller? What is model and view? And we know what is view resolver, what is model and view, what is view resolver, and we know what is view component, and we know how to work with the time leaf here. What is time leaf? How to work with the time leaf, and how to implement form binding by using time leaf, and how to implement form validations by using time leaf. Form validations by using third time leaf. So web application with CRUD operations, we are able to implement one web application with the CRUD operations. So we used JSP as UI. JSP as UI layer, we also understood that concept, and we discussed about exception handling, how to handle exceptions in the web application, and we understood how to send email by using Spring Boot, and we understood actuators in the Spring Boot, and profiles in the Spring Boot. Spring Boot actuators, Spring Boot profiles. Spring Boot actuators we understood, Spring Boot profiles also we understood. So what is MVC module? MVC is one of the most important module from the Spring framework, which is used to develop both web applications as well as distributed applications. So when we are going to develop any application by using MVC architecture, we need to understand the architecture of the MVC module. What is this MVC and why we need to go for MVC? What is MVC and why we need to go for this MVC module? So MVC architecture, how the request will be processed in the MVC module. First, the request will go to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet is going to act as a front controller for our application. Dispatcher servlet is going to act as a front controller for our application. Okay, so the dispatcher servlet is going to act as a front controller. It will take the request and it will give the request to the handler mapper. Handler mapper is going to identify which controller is responsible to handle. So multiple controllers will be available in the application. In one controller, multiple methods also will be available. Once the controller execution completed, controller is going to return model and view component. Model represents data in the form of key and value. View is a logical file name. View resolver is going to identify where the view files are available and it will render model data on the view component. For the presentation, we used TimeLeaf as UI layer. So we created HTML pages. In general, HTML is used to create the only static web pages. But I want to display the dynamic content in the web page. So to display the dynamic content in the web page, we are going for this TimeLeaf concept. And we are developing form-based applications. We want to map our object data to the form and form data to the object. That's where we are using form binding technique. Form data can be stored in the object data can be displayed in the form. And when we are developing form applications, when we are developing forms in the application, user may submit form with invalid data. So to stop it, we are going to perform form validations. The form validations we can do in two ways. Client-side form validations we can implement and the server-side validations also we can implement. And we are able to develop one student management application, inserting the record, retrieving the records, deleting the records. And we used JSP as a presentation layer. So Spring MVC will support for TimeLeaf as presentation, JSP also for the presentation. You can use any one according to your requirement. And in the application, getting the exceptions is very common. So we are able to understand exception handling. We are able to understand exception handling here. Exceptions can be handled in two ways. One is called class-based exception handling. Another one is global exception handling. Class-based exception handling, nothing but you can handle the exceptions related to only particular class. If you want to handle exceptions in the entire application, then we can go for global exception handling concept. You can go for global exception handling by using controller advice. And in the Spring Boot application, how to send the emails for the customers. When user registered in our application, we should be able to send the email for that user saying registration successful. And we are able to implement login registration functionality. Login and registration functionality by using Spring Boot. So I have given this one as a task for you. Login and registration app implementation. How to create the account for the user. Once the account is created, then how to log in into the application by entering the login credentials and go to the dashboard page. And we discussed about what is request param. We discussed about request parameter. we discussed about request parameter, and we discussed about response body. So what is the meaning of request parameter in the web MVC, guys? What is the purpose of request parameter in the web MVC?
We need to get the query parameters from the URL.
Yes, we are going to get the query parameters from the URL. For that, we use one annotation called @request parameter. When we are editing the record, when you want to read some data from the URL, then we are going to use request parameter annotation. Okay. Then what is response body in the web MVC? What is response body in the web MVC?
Sir, one thing, sir.
Come on. What is the meaning of
Used to
response
get
body
direct
in the
response.
MVC?
Direct response to the client without any view page.
Yes, when you want to send the direct response, there is no view. So there is no view page, there is no HTML page. I want to send a direct response to the client. So whenever client send a request, basically when you are going to develop a web services, when you are going to develop the full stack application, back-end application, front-end application separately, then your controller will send direct response to the client. In that scenario, we are going to use one annotation called response body annotation. We are going to use annotation called response body annotation. Then next one, we discussed about actuators in the previous session, and we discussed about profiles in the yesterday session. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. And what about the profiles concept? Profiles are used to manage environment specific configuration in our application. Profiles are used to deal with the environment specific configuration in our application. Okay, I hope you got the clarity on profiles concept and actuators concept in the Spring Boot. Profiles concept and actuators concept in the Spring Boot. So this is what we have learned in the previous classes. Spring core concepts. We discussed about Spring architecture. What is the Spring framework? Okay. We discussed about what is framework. What is framework? Spring architecture. What is the Spring architecture and what are the Spring modules available? Spring modules, then Spring core module intro, Spring core module introduction we understood. Then we started IOC container. It is used to manage the dependencies in our application. One class wants to communicate with the another class. Instead of we are creating the object, our IOC container is going to create the object for the classes. Dependency injection, Spring Bean, Bean auto wiring, Bean lifecycle, Bean scopes concept also we understood. So what is the singleton bean? What is the prototype bean? The bean scopes concept also we discussed. And so this is fundamental concepts of the Spring framework. The fundamental concepts of the Spring framework. Okay, Spring framework. What is framework? What is the difference between core Java, advanced Java, and framework? And the Spring architecture, Spring modules, Spring core module. In the Spring core module only we understood IOC container, dependency injection, setter injection, constructor injection, field injection. So when it comes to the dependency injection, we have seen SI and CI and FI. Okay, setter injection, constructor injection, field injection we understood. And Spring Bean, how to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean, the annotations, Spring annotations we discussed. Okay, Spring annotations, @component, @service, @repository, @bean, @scope, @configuration, @post construct, @pre-destroy. Lot of Spring annotations we discussed as part of our Spring framework. Once we got the clarity on the fundamental concepts of the Spring framework, we started Spring Boot. So Spring Boot introduction. What is the Spring Boot? Advantages with the Spring Boot. Spring versus Spring Boot. Advantages of Spring Boot. Advantages of Boot. And Spring Initializer website. What is the Spring Initializer website? Spring Initializer website is used to develop Spring applications. So if you want to create a boot application, then you need to use initializer website, which is start.spring.io. Start.spring.io. Initializer website is available to create the project. So Spring Boot project you can create in multiple ways, using initializer website, using IDE also. And we discussed about Spring Boot POM starters. We discussed about Spring Boot POM starters. So if you want to develop any boot application, then POM starters are very, very, very important. POM starters are going to play very important role here. So MVC starter, web starter, JPA starter, mail starter, like that, lot of POM starters will be available. And auto configuration, one of the most important concept in the Spring Boot. The main advantage of using Spring Boot is auto configuration only. The biggest advantage of using Spring Boot is auto configuration only. The biggest advantage of using Spring Boot is auto configuration only. So can anyone tell me what is the meaning of auto configuration, guys? Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of auto configuration? Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of auto configuration?
Configure whatever we are giving in the pom.xml file, all the configuration it will configure.
Yes, it is going to identify configuration required for the project. Based on the POM starters we are adding in the project, it will identify the configuration required for the project and it will provide that configuration. So if you add web starter, Tomcat server will come. If you add JPA starter, then connection pool will be available. So if you add security starter, authentication will be provided. So auto configuration means based on the POM starters available in the application, Boot will identify configuration required for the project and it will provide that configuration. And component scanning is available. What is the meaning of component scanning?
It will scan all the Spring Boot class.
Yes, it is going to scan the packages available in the application and it will identify Spring Bean classes available in the project and it will provide IOC container. It will provide the information to IOC container to create the objects for those classes. And what is start class of Spring Boot? What is start class of Spring Boot, guys?
When we are running the Spring Boot application, it will start from this start class.
So for every Spring Boot application, start class will be available with a main method. For every Spring Boot application, start class will be available with a main method that is entry point for the boot application. That is entry point for the boot application, start class of Spring Boot. So inside the start class, Spring Boot application annotation will be available, run method will be available. This annotation is equal to 3 annotations: configuration, auto configuration, component scanning. Run method will perform lot of operations internally. It will create the IOC container. It will start the, it will print the banner. It will call the runners also. Banner means the logo which is printing on the console. What is the meaning of runners in the Spring Boot? Can anybody tell me the purpose of runners in the Spring Boot? Guys, what is the purpose of runners in the Spring Boot?
When we are where we want to execute one.
Yes, if you want to execute any logic only once when the application is started. When you want to execute any logic only once when the application is started, then we are going to use a concept called runners concept. Okay, when you want to execute any logic, when my application is starting, then I want to execute the logic only once, then we are going to use the runners concept here. Spring Boot runners. Then after this, data JPA. So data JPA is used to communicate with the databases. Entity class. The Java class which is mapped with the database table is called as entity class. So for every table, one entity class will be available, one repository interface will be available, and the repository interfaces we can use CRUD repository and we can use JPA repository and we can use find by methods, custom queries. So we discussed about the difference between SQL query versus a HQL query, and we discussed about the JPA repository, pagination concept, sorting concept, query by example, time stamping, generators concept also we implemented. Then coming to WebMVC. What is WebMVC module and why? Spring WebMVC introduction. Okay, Spring WebMVC introduction. Spring Web MVC introduction, which is used to develop the web applications with C2B, MVC architecture. When we go for MVC architecture, dispatcher servlet is available, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, and view component is available. Timeleaf we used as view layer, form binding also we implemented, form validations we implemented, CRUD operations we performed, JSP also we used as UI layer, exception handling we implemented, email sending implemented, login and registration, request parameter, response body, embedded containers. We discussed about embedded containers. We discussed about embedded database. And we discussed about HTTP session, embedded containers. Okay. So when you are running the boot application, you no need to set up the server. When we are running the boot application, you no need to set up the server. Server will be taken care by Spring Boot only. So that is called embedded container. By default, we are getting Apache as an embedded container. If you don't want Apache, then you can configure Jetty also as an embedded container. Jetty also as an embedded container. Are you clear with my point? Then we know how to remove the Tomcat as an embedded container and how to configure Jetty as a embedded container. And the next one, we have discussed about embedded database concept. What is the meaning of embedded database, guys? Any idea? What is the meaning of embedded database?
It is the inbuilt database.
It is a temporary database.
It is a temporary database. When you are running the application, only for some time, I want the database. I don't want to download and install the database in my system, because in companies, you can't download and install the databases on your own. You can't download and install the databases on your own in the company. So that is the reason we are going to use embedded database concept. So we can use H2DB as a embedded database for our application. Okay. Then we discussed about HTTP session. Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of a HTTP session, guys? Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of HTTP session?
To track the identity of an user
login to till logout. When user login to till logout, we are going to use this HTTP session concept. From user login to till logout, we want to recognize the user identity. For that, we are going to use HTTP session concept. And I have given one assignment on the session: phone book application development. Phone book application development by using session. I have given this one as a task. So you need to create the account, then you need to log in, then you need to add your contacts. So once you log out and when you log in, only your contacts should be displayed. So this phone book can be used by multiple users. Phone book can be used by multiple users. So you should maintain the user session and you need to display the contacts based on the user session. Are you guys able to implement that concept? Phone book application?
Yes, sir. Completed.
Yes, sir.
Completed. When user registered, the account will be created. Then user can log in. User can register and user can log in. Then after this, we want that user to create the contacts. So multiple users can create the contacts. My contacts will be different. Your contacts can be different. When user log in, based on the logged in user, we need to display the contacts here. Based on the logged in user, we need to display contacts here. Are you clear with my point? So this is what we learned so far in our course. So almost 45 days. Almost 45 days we have already completed for our Spring Boot training. In these 45 days of time, we have learned these concepts, guys. Summary of our classes. Summary of our classes. So from the last 45 days, I think when this course is started, guys?
10th July.
10th July.
10th July, 2 months also not completed. So almost in the 45 days or 50 days of time, we have learned these concepts. So guys, do you feel whatever the 45 days you spent for the 45 SBMS, do you feel you learned any concept? Do you feel that this 45 days of our journey is making any difference in your skill set?
Yes, sir.
Is there any difference in your skill set? You spent
Yes,
45 days with me.
Yes, sir.
You spent 45 days with me. So are you getting, and one more thing, we covered some tools also. Some real-time tools also I covered as of now. You attended some classes in the morning for the real-time tools. What are the tools you learned, guys?
Maven.
What are the tools you learned? Along with the project people, you attended some real-time tools also. What are the real-time tools you learned so far? You learned Maven. Can you guys tell me what is the purpose of Maven?
To add the dependency.
Log4j, log back.
What
To
is the
automate
purpose
the
of
process of
Maven?
building
Why we
project.
discuss why we learned Maven tool? Why you
To
learned
automate
Maven
the
tool?
building process of Spring Boot project.
It is used to automate the build process of our application. It is used to automate the build process of our application. We learned this Maven concept. After Maven, we discussed about log4j. After Maven, we discussed about log4j. What is the purpose of this log4j?
Storing the
purpose
application
of
details.
log4j?
Runtime execution of the application.
Log4j is used to store. The log4j is used to implement logging in the application. Our application execution details we can track. Application execution details we can track by using this log4j. And we discussed about GitHub. What is the purpose of this GitHub? We learned GitHub also. What is the purpose of GitHub?
It is a version control software by using
GitHub is a version control software. So in a project, multiple team members will be available, and those team members will be working from different locations. In a project, multiple team members will be available. Those team members will be working from different locations. All the developers' code should be integrated at one place. So project development team will be working from different locations. All the developers' code should be integrated at one place. So that's where GitHub will be used as a version control software. Okay, git clone, git pull, git push, git commit, git checkout, git branches, git merge conflicts, git pull request, git rebase, git stash, git status, like that. Lot of commands we discussed from GitHub, and we have seen Bitbucket also. And logging we also discussed. And we discussed about one more tool called JMeter. We discussed about one more tool called JMeter. What is the purpose of that JMeter? What is the purpose of JMeter, guys?
For testing purpose.
What is the purpose of JMeter? You attended
Test
one
the performance of the
The stability and performance of
an
the
application.
JMeter is used for performance testing. JMeter is used for performance testing of our application. So how many users can access our application at a time? How many users can access our application at a time? What is the stability of our application? What is the average response time of our application? We can understand by using a tool called JMeter. It is used to implement performance testing for a project. It is used to implement performance testing for the project. So in the from 10th July, so the batch got started on the 10th July. Yes, that's correct. Batch started on the 10th July. Today is 3rd September. Okay, so almost 50 days, guys. Almost 50 days of time we spent for our Spring Boot microservices. In these 50 days of time, these are the concepts we have learned from the Spring Boot. And still course is not completed. Another 1 month it is going to take to complete the course. Another 30 classes I'm going to take to complete the course, 30 to 40 days. Another 30 to 40 days of time it is going to take to complete the course. Now it is like a checkpoint. So in the last 45 days of time, whatever we covered and how confident you are on these 45 days classes that are completed for the Spring Boot. Just I have given the summary, what topics we have learned. So do you feel you learned a lot of concepts, or you feel you need to learn a lot more concepts? So what is your thought process? What is your mindset now? What you are thinking? Because almost 70%, 60% of course got completed. That is, what is your thought process now? What are you thinking after seeing this review? Summary: 45 days completed. 60% of the syllabus also completed. 60 to 70% syllabus completed.
Yes, sir. After this one, I'm able to having good knowledge on Spring Boot. I mean, at least I can kickstart of the projects.
At least you can start working on project. You can start developing JPA operations. You can perform web application forms. You can develop emails. You can send. Okay, validations you can implement in the application, and build tools like Maven you can use to automate build process. And whatever the code you are doing in the project, you can integrate your code with other developers' code in the project. Okay, log4j is available. You can implement logging in the application. Logging is very important for the projects in the real time. Okay, and the JMeter is available. JMeter is used to implement performance testing of our application. Okay, what is the stability of the application and what is responsiveness of the application, we can understand by using this JMeter concept. Okay, good.
Sir, what is Apache Kafka?
That is a streaming platform, sir. It is another tool that we will use in the Java application. Will come in the coming classes.
Okay.
Sir, can you cover interceptors, sir?
Yes, sir. Interceptors, filters concept also I will explain.
Okay, sir.
So guys, with this, can you guys give me a quick feedback in the Google review? 45 days completed. Did you guys provide the review for our classes in Google? If anybody has not done, so please write your genuine feedback. What do you feel about? Because if I ask the feedback in the first 1 week, that you may not give the genuine feedback. Now you traveled with me for almost 50 days. You have seen the classes. Okay, so I have given a Google review form. Can you guys write your genuine feedback for our classes? What do you feel about our classes? How these classes are helping you, and any improvements are required from my side? You write your genuine feedback in the Google. Guys, it will take just 30 seconds. Just open that link and write your genuine feedback. Give some stars and write your message. What do you feel about the classes? I want to see in your words. Guys, once you complete it, then please confirm in the chat box. Write your message. What
Sir.
do you feel? Yeah.
Sir, I am getting an error while opening this page. 404.
Google review form?
Yes.
Yes, even for sir.
For
Me
you
also, sir.
Okay. Maybe that.
We need to remove the star at the
Yes,
end.
sir. I have given the new link now. I think the star is extra. That's why you are not able to access. Write your genuine message, guys. What is the good thing? What is the bad thing? You can mention that. What do you feel about the classes? You write it. Anybody want to show me the phone book application that you have developed? I have given that as a task to implement phone book application by using Spring Boot, Data JPA, and WebMVC.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So my name is Prathamesh, and I developed that application by using Spring Boot and Data JPA.
Okay.
So can I share my screen?
Yes, sir. I will give you the permission to share your screen. I will review that, how it is working. Guys, all of you completed your review in the Google. If anybody is not done, please just spend 30 seconds time for me.
Sir, it is showing host disabled participant screen.
Yeah, I will give the permission, sir. I will give that.
Okay.
He knows only Telugu.
Yeah, that's why I didn't ask. That's why
So am I.
I don't know Telugu.
Okay. You need some water.
Okay.
Completed, guys. So one person want to show his project that he developed. Prathamesh, you developed
Yes,
this
sir.
project, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Prathamesh. So I'm giving you co-host permission. Share your screen, guys. Remaining people, just see that we have given the assignment. He completed that. Let us see how it is working.
Is my screen is visible, sir?
Yes, sir. I can see that.
Okay.
Yes, I can see your screen. You can run the application and you can show me.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes.
So, sir, this is the registration.
Registration, yes. You can create one account.
Okay. So we need to put a genuine email ID because I created a forgot password page. So over that the OTP is sending.
Okay.
Forward email message. Okay, so actually the mail is already using for that.
Use a different mail ID, something like abc@gmail.com. Anything is fine.
Okay, so after that we are getting this login page.
Yep. You can log in abc@gmail.com. Password, yes, login. Yeah,
So
you
it
have
is,
the option to add the contact. Now
add the
let's add
contact.
ABC1, contact number 1234. Yes, add the contact.
Add contact.
View contact.
Is showing contact saved, and view
Yes.
contact it is showing for that dashboard.
Only one contact that you
Only one
added.
contact added. Okay, I'm adding another contact ABCD and add contact.
Yes.
Contact
View
is saved.
contact.
View contact
Yes.
it is showing this. And if I try to log in with a different
Mail ID.
account,
Yes.
mail
This
ID,
contact should not be displayed.
this contact will yes should not be displayed. And if I click on logout, okay, and if I go back and try to add the contact, I'm navigate to please login first. That
Okay,
means
good.
I invalidate the HTTP session in a logout button.
Yeah, now log in with different mail ID.
Okay.
View contact, directly go to view contact.
Okay.
Yes, that ABC contact is not coming. Good.
It's not coming.
Correct,
Yes.
sir. You are able to implement it.
Yes, yes, and I also implement that forgot password page. You are giving
Yes.
that second assignment now. So when I click on forgot password, it redirect to the that email page. So if I give any random or any XYZ email that doesn't match with the database table column, so when I click on submit, it's showing invalid email. And if I try to add a genuine email, that is this. So when I click on submit, so
Hello?
it gives OTP to that email ID. It sends OTP to that email ID, and
good.
And see, this is a OTP which we are getting. 163,475.
Yeah.
When I click on submit, it shows enter password and confirm password, that a new password. And if I put two password wrong password, then it when I click on submit, it shows password not match. Then that means we need to put the same password for these two fields. So it redirects to the login page, and then after I'm trying to log in with the password, and it gives me again the dashboard. So this
Good, sir. How you are managing that user ID in the session? Can you show the code?
Sure. So this is a user entity, and one user can add multiple contacts. So I'm taking a list of contacts, and I took one too many annotation, and I mapped with that user name field, which is given in a contact.
One to many, many to one. Good.
Many to one, yes.
Good job.
And OTP you are hard coding in the project?
No. I am not hard coding the OTP. I create one. Let me show you. I create one method, generate OTP, and I return that OTP.
Random OTP is generated, yes.
Generated, yes.
Okay.
So this is my project.
Good job, Prathamesh. You're fresher or experienced?
So currently I'm working in TCS, but not as a Java developer. I'm working as a support engineer.
Okay, good. So how many years experience you have?
I have a 3 years of experience.
3 years in the support role you are working currently?
Yes, sir.
Java support or what?
It is a production support, Java support only.
L1, L2?
It is a L2.
L2. So you will check the logs of the application and you will figure out the issue.
Yes, sir.
What is the log monitoring tool you are using?
Log monitoring tool. Earlier we are using a Grafana.
Okay.
But currently it is switched to that
Splunk.
Splunk, yes, sir. Splunk.
Okay. Splunk is very important.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Good job. Thank you. Good. Anyone else who completed this task, guys? One guy completed this task and using OTP. Good job. Congratulations, man. Anyone else who is able to complete this implementation?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
I completed, but I have not done the forgot password.
Okay. Forgot password you need to implement. So when you will complete that?
I will complete by today.
Okay. And anyone else facing any issues? Whatever the topics we completed till today, I hope you completed the practice also. Anybody got stuck with any problem? Any issues you are facing while doing the practice? Anybody need my help in resolving that issue? No issues? Okay. So today you have time to revise the concepts that we discussed so far, and I have uploaded the updated notes. Actuator notes was missing. I added that also, and I updated the notes in the portal. And the summary notes also I have updated in the portal. Please revise all these concepts before coming to tomorrow's session. Okay, good. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, I have one doubt, sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
While creating the project, while creating the Spring Boot project, we need to select it as a jar or war file, sir.
Anything is fine, sir. You can go with the jar because any Java application which is running from the main method can be packaged as a jar file. So every Spring Boot application will run from the main method. So that is the reason we are using jar file for that.
Okay, sir. But as a JSP, as a UI,
then you can use war file for that. If you are using JSP, then you can select war file.
Sir, but that project will start from main class at that
main method only, sir. Even though if it is war, every Spring Boot application will start from main method only. Without main method, Spring Boot application cannot execute.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
You got my point?
Okay, sir. I got your point.
Yeah. Good, guys. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session. Until then, bye-bye. Take care.